What it do? It's your boys at the Freeaboos podcast. It's your boy Jeff.
And Austin.
Here to review some anime, finally.
The One Piece is back.
The hiatus is done.
We have endured the 6 months, and we are back with 11/23 and 11/24, both coming out Saturday, Sunday, respectively. I know it's a new time slot in Japan, so that does mean there will be actually more mature themes and aspects in One Piece. Like, you might see a little bit more gore and graphic stuff. It does also impact the timing of release here in America. But it doesn't matter because timing, graphics, who cares? One Piece is back.
We've got a lot of review. A lot of it is just catching back up and being updated on, of course, the now peak animation. It's incredibly pretty. We have a new intro, new outro.
New eye-catcher intermission bits. And I have seen a couple things online that maybe these 2 episodes were done technically before the studio kind of hit the reset button. But because I think if you notice in the previews for 11/25, it looked a little bit crispier than 11/24 did.
Yeah, but definitely these were probably the buffer episodes in case like the contracts made it like, yeah, we need another episode, we can do hiatus.
These were the last batch, I think, and they just thought that Garp's sacrifice was a good stopping point, and I think it was.
All things considered, that is a high note to leave us on for a 6-month gap. We definitely needed like at least a couple of breathers, some refreshers to go on between, because of course Egghead is all gas, no brakes. We have a lot going on.
From now on, there is no stopping this train. And with that being said, let's just jump right into it. First up, we're going to be discussing 11/23. 11/23 being the Saturday episode. And not shockingly, you had a bit of recap in this episode, and which is perfectly fine because after
6-month gap, we needed just a little bit to refresh our minds.
Yeah. And this was called "The World Shakes: The Straw Hats Hostage Situation." It opened up beautiful scenery shots, and it actually cut to Luffy's hometown.
So the world is actually shaking. There's a gigantic earthquake.
Yep, and that does happen, which we'll get into just a little bit. But we first catch up with our favorite adoptive mom in One Piece, Dodon. Everyone's reacting to 2 bits of news. 1, Garp disappearing on Pirate Island. And 2, what Big News Morgans is saying is happening on Egghead, with Yonko, Emperor, Straw Hat Luffy holding Vegapunk hostage. Not something prompted by the government. Morgan's just spun it that way. I think Vivi, before the Times called him out on his bullshit, or mentioned in these 2 episodes, called him out on his bullshit because she's with him. But we start off seeing Dodon's crying, worried for both Garp and Luffy.
Just an interesting moment to speculate is that, you have essentially one of the toughest guys on Earth show up with one of the most infamous pirate sons in one hand and one of the most infamous criminals' sons in the other hand. It's like, yeah, hey, these friggin' monkey children are your problem now. Deal with them. And Dodon, look, God bless her, there's nothing she could have done better. Those 2 children were destined for what they were going to do.
And then you throw in Sabo.
Yeah. You have all 3 of these little mongoloids acting up at the same time. But, you have Garp in the back of your mind. It's like, okay, things can't ever be that bad because Garp won't let them be that bad. And then just a quick reminder of, Ace. Dodon could not have been more disappointed in the toughest guy on Earth just letting it go. The toughest guy in the world subsequently, about 2 and change years later, gets captured. Mm-hmm. This is awful. And then, the last one that you're pretty sure is still alive, is now a Yonko himself.
Although, to be fair, like, I wonder, the one thing that this bothers me is Sabo, in a way. And I think this just kind of goes, like, Oda does seemingly make things up along the way sometimes. And obviously, Dodon was attached to Ace and Luffy.
Yeah.
And Ace's death devastated her. But we also know that she cared for Sabo. Maybe not in the same tier as Ace and Luffy, but definitely still cared for him. But she stays informed. And there's no way that they don't talk, like, in the papers, they don't talk about the commander-in-chief of the Revolutionary Army. And like, Sabo. And they throw in photos of him. So, like, to me, it's... I'm not going to say a plot hole, but it's definitely like a head scratcher as to like why Dodon didn't tell Luffy, because we know that Sabo was being a little terrorist before Luffy even set out to sea.
That's true.
But maybe maybe Sabo's like, well, there's no way it's him. He's dead. And then maybe eventually the photo came out after Luffy because,
Well, we can also keep in mind, I guess, what we call the Superman effect, or most famously, the Dolly Parton effect, and that Dolly Parton once came third place in a Dolly Parton lookalike contest. So,
yeah,
like...
it happens, but... Yeah. But, so... And Makino's baby we see, and we actually get a nice little tidbit that the baby recognizes Luffy's face and calms down when crying, seeing Luffy. And then as people are speculating about what Luffy's doing, is Garp okay? This big earthquake hits in Fuchsia Village, which is in the East Blue. And then we cut to the North Blue, South Blue, and
we have the whole world shaken.
And when we're talking whole world, we are talking from Fuchsia Village to Wano to the bottom of Impel Down to the top of Marie Joie. Like, there was no part that was not affected.
Like, for our world, I mean, we talked about this earlier before the podcast, like, very seriously, probably north of a 9 on the Richter scale, and that's pretty terrible.
And a reminder, One Piece world is larger than ours. And we also see that a Navy ship had gone to where Lelouch was, and now it is just a giant crater that is filling with water, and the ship is like, okay, yep, nope, can't get any closer, we're done.
Well, we also get a particularly interesting note is that the sea level rose
a whole meter.
I thought it said 3 meters.
Maybe? Is it a meter or 3 meters?
Several feet.
Yes.
Several feet.
You had whole islands wiped off the map because of this rise in sea level. And we saw, it was merely one of the more, not, I'm going to say comedy bits. I didn't call it funny, but on Kama Land Kingdoms, I wanted to run on the beach, but now their beach is gone.
Well, also, at Kamabaka Island, they're shaped like giant cupcakes almost. It's like, the one place you would expect to be okay from a couple foot rise, just like Wano. It's like, you'll be fine.
Yeah. But it does, it speaks to the power of the Mother Flame that Emu used to destroy Lelouch, to cause this earthquake. It happened several days after the nuking of Lelouch. And it's just like, in the world, there's no epicenter discoverable, which is very bizarre.
Yeah.
And we're going to put a pin in this earthquake temporarily, because later on during Egghead, the importance of the timing of the earthquake comes to light. Not right now, but we're just going to put a pin in that. And so after the earthquake, another shot of Emu just staring at the ground and the butterflies in that weird-ass room. We cut back to Egghead. We have the total Navy forces named 30,000
soldiers,
30,000 troops, 100 total ships, including 20 battleships, 9 vice admirals, and Kizaru.
Adam Sandler showed up. It's got real, dude. It's so real.
Kizaru dripped out in his yellow and black suit, which is actually from film Red, interesting enough. So, like, and then they're currently in check right now with the Egghead defenses, mainly the Sea Beast weapons.
Well, a good chunk of stuff actually goes on here in that, like, yeah, they form up to do, like, what we would assume they'd be getting ready for a buster call. And they have to actually wait a minute, because even though they could just start shelling it, the Sea Beasts would be a serious
And then
problem.
also on the shore of Egghead are a bunch of those Mark III pacifistas.
At least 30 of them?
I can at least say a good dozen or so, yeah.
There's at least a dozen of them at Marineford, and these are better.
Yeah, those were like the Mark I pacifistas
These
at
are Mark
Marineford.
IIIs.
These are the Mark IIIs. They got the bubble shield, lasers, and just dripped out better, too.
So the island is fairly well fortified, and we actually get a conversation of our boy Adam Sandler talking to subordinates and superiors about the situation, because it seems like this has just become his problem, TM. And I didn't think we'd actually get the parts about him actually having a little bit of emotional conflict with the situation, because since Centaur is the one who's in charge of, he's in charge of the pacifistas. I don't think he's in charge of the Sea Beast. What, is he in charge of the Sea Beast?
He is. He's currently Centaur is in charge of the defenses of Egghead. And as we know, Kizaru and Centaur have a bond. Back in Saba Odi, Centaur was calling Kizaru uncle.
Straight up unk status.
Yes. And we see one of the Sea Beasts attack one of the ships, takes a good bite out of it, literally chews through the cannons on it.
Yeah.
And Kizaru just goes through it in light mode to destroy it. Centaur and Kizaru have a back and forth, but it's like, hey, that attacked us. I had to take care of that.
Adam Sandler put some respect on his boy Centaur's name, and he's like, all right, I could just roll on in here and like go straight for the labio phase, but I'm not about to fly right by past Centaur. I owe him that. Plus, he controls the Sea Beast, he controls the pacifistas. You
can't ignore Centaur because Centaur has the capacity to, I'm not going to say wipe out the fleet, but I would definitely say take out a good chunk of it. And you need as much of that as fleet as possible. And so, but the situation at Egghead is dark because the Labosphere defense is on 100, no communication in or out. And then we get a scene of the transponder snail in the Gorsei's room ringing from Egghead. The Gorsei answer, and
York's talking.
York's like, why the hell you attacking me? Everything's fine here. I want to be a celestial dragon. Gorsei, fine. You can make the mother flame, right? Of course I can. I'm Vegapunk. And she says, hey, I'm the only Vegapunk left. Seraphim did their thing, but if you fuck with me, I'll fuck with you. So let's call this off. But then
Luffy picks up the phone.
York breaks, and it's revealed that Zoro's holding a sword over her, and we have this great shot. However, there is one elephant in the room here that...
Or not there.
Egghead has been doing very dirty, and it needs to be talked about. Sanji getting removed from a crowd shot for no reason. In the manga, you have...
It's like side-by-side comparison, he's right there.
You have Jinbei on the right, Zoro on York, like a thing
Second
by York,
from.
Nami third, Luffy front and center in the middle, and a gap with then Lucci, Bonnie, Usopp, Frankie, Vegapunk, and Brook. In the manga, Sanji is between Luffy and Lucci, and there's no explanation for it. Toei, I've seen the meme on Twitter, and at this point, I do gotta agree, because they've been doing my boy dirty in Egghead. That Judge is the CEO of Toei.
Look, Zoro fan stonks. They just went up a little bit. It's okay, Sanji fans. We'll get them next time.
Yes, it's fun to poke fun at the Zoro v Sanji fan bases, but we can also admit when a character's done bad.
Look, let's also just zoom in for a minute. Zoro is so smug right now, and it kind of goes hard.
A reminder, Zoro would kill. York, no second thought.
It wouldn't even be difficult.
Also, we can also talk about Usopp actually kind of going back to the fact that we forget Usopp's very intelligent.
Usopp is
gizmos
way
and
smarter
stuff.
than we give him credit for.
I mean, Usopp was the inventor of the Straw Hats before Frankie came on. He literally was. So, I mean, he made Nami's first climate tech that fought in Alabasta and stuff. So
He held them married together.
yeah, so Usopp, no slouch in the create. So it's nice to see Usopp get a bit of recognition back in with his intelligence. Yes, Usopp's a coward, but he's a smart coward. And, you know,
His use is just not in primary battle.
No.
He's a sniper. He always ends up in a non-sniper position.
yes. And so the episode ends with Kizaru, Saturn, the Gorosei, all like, what the fuck is happening? With York crying for help. And again, like, a good, I'm not going to say third, but a good quarter was a recap. And we also know that Big News Morgan was tapping in because something that's been talked about is the black Den Moshi. It's the interceptor snail, the transponder snails. And they are very effective. And
They're basically wiretaps.
they literally are. And I know there's only one way to block the black transponder snails from intercepting. You have to have this white transponder snail or something like that. Or it's like this older version and older, bigger transponder snail, which the Revolutionary Army uses. And Sabo even says, why didn't you, when Koala asks when he rejoins them, like, why didn't you contact us? I couldn't get a hold of a signal jammer snail. So we know that these black Den Moshis are incredibly useful for eavesdropping.
Well, we get some slight commentary about that once Luffy picks up the snail and he starts talking to the Gorosei, which did anticipate that.
Pushes us right into 1124, kicking us right back off. With 1124 titled Completely Surrounded, the operation to escape Egghead, because no way will they have any issues escaping Egghead surrounded by 100 Navy battleships. Literally the fastest admiral. But starts off, like you said, Luffy grabbing the mic.
Unfortunately, Luffy is a worse speaker on the phone than I am. And after like 2 seconds, the Gorosei starts up pretty quickly. Like, what do you want? And he's like,
Safe passage. Pull the ships back. Let us go.
He follows it up with, okay, is anyone injured in there? And Luffy looks back to check, which, like, you know, that would be fairly reasonable if you weren't talking to someone who's, as Robin
Literally
says,
the enemy.
The enemy. And Robin literally has to yoink that shit out of his hand and be like, Luffy,
And
no.
covers his mouth and hangs up immediately. But Luffy also, as usual, proclaims, I am Monkey D. Luffy, the man who will be king of the pirates. He is nothing if not consistent.
He said that to the Gorosei, which, you know, just think about the journey of that for a minute. He's gone from literally shouting it out to sea when no one took him seriously to someone who now actually has to take that as a legitimate threat.
Yeah, and also, but an important thing, I would say, apart from Robin, none of the Straw Hats are really aware of the Gorosei. Because Luffy's an idiot. Zoro, I mean, he's not stupid
better.
in this, but he's not stupid. However,
He wouldn't know about ultra-secret government operations.
The Gorosei are actually known as like the 5 people of the Celestial Dragons that do make the calls of the world government, you know. But Zoro does not care for politics. Usopp, he, again, not very geopolitically
Well, we also saw that, like, during the time skip, he was on a basically empty island with one other dude.
Yeah.
How much news got in.
Yeah, and even when he was growing up or on the trucks, you know, at most he may have heard stories. But, like, you know, Chopper is a reindeer. He does not count. Not to be mean, but he would not know. Frankie possibly, because he does have... We do forget, Frankie is the actually only known buyer on the black market of the Straw Hats. Okay, Jinbei would know, though. Literally former warlord, Jinbei would know.
Jinbei would know. He was also pretty high up in the organization, even with Big Mom, and I'm pretty sure Big Mom would be pretty in the know about the Gorosei.
I think the most underrated thing about Big Mom was her network of information gathering.
Well, she had infrastructure.
I think she had the best information network out of any Yonko we've seen.
Well, the reason, forgotten thing about Big Mom is that she, as 50% horrifying government, like horrifying pirate threat, top tier in the verse, comma, sustainable government structure. Like, her
Yeah.
people weren't starving, they were oppressed, yeah, but like, they weren't as revolutionary as Wano, which is part of why, even in her absence, things haven't fallen apart the same way they did.
They fell apart more likely, or I should say, they got put on ice.
Yeah.
Thanks to Kuzan's appearance and taking of pudding. But so they talk after the hang up, and Robin tells Luffy, "Don't give the enemy information." I was like, "Oh, right, sorry."
Once again, we see the Pirate King needs his advisors.
Yes. And then there's a powwow scene of trying to figure out the objective of how do we actually get away from all these ships.
We can't sail straight out, there's too many out there.
So they were going to use the giant mech they have that, and then on top of that, they'll use
The coup de burst.
coup de burst to get that extra, I think, what, kilometer?
Yeah, we actually had a nice powwow between Vegapunk and Frankie. Finally.
Yes. And well, of course, you got to figure out where you're going, though. And fortunately, the log poses from Wano are still active. And they're one that is still steady. Vegapunk looks like, oh, you're going to Elbaf.
Elbaf mentioned.
Elbaf, which was back in Little Garden, which was literally over 1,000 episodes ago. Because Little Garden was before Alabasta, and Alabasta... No, it was episode 100.
Yeah, it was before Alabasta, because
before
I don't think
Alabasta.
Vivi was there.
Yeah, no, Vivi was on Little Garden.
It was
No, was it Little Garden?
I think Whiskey Peak came after.
It was Little Garden, Whiskey Peak, Drum Island. That's the
Yeah.
order. Yeah. That's the order. Because, Hachinosu Sovereignty, Vivi was not on the Mary when Dory and Brogy cut the serpent. Yeah,
Even back then, they were relevant now.
Yeah.
Those guys fighting
And
for 100 years.
Dory
was
and Brogy, yeah.
Pretty wild.
And Usopp and Luffy, being the kids they are, just start dancing, hearing they're going to Elbaf. And, well, obviously that's where we are in the manga, which we have talked about in our other videos. Playlist is there. We've talked about the more recent chapters there. Very important island. The last time we were technically there was Big Mom's flashbacks.
Yeah, I forgot we've actually had like some cursory
Snippets
introduction.
of Elbaf, yes. But Elbaf, the land of giants, the land of warriors, again an unaffiliated nation like Wano. Not a Yonko territory. Yes, Elbaf can be considered part of Shanks' territory, but it's not like Shanks' residency, like Wano was Kaido's.
Their isolation is a little different because the giants are mentioned as effectively the strongest military on Earth that doesn't like formally adventure beyond its own borders.
Yeah,
giant pirates are considered exceptionally valued through Cross Guild, as we see. Mm-hmm. And what is it? Buggy had like 100 giants or something.
No, not that many. He had basically the new giant pirates working for him, but then after Dressrosa, combined with the abolition of the warlord system, they jumped ship to the Straw Hat Grand Fleet. So you do see, but yeah, giant pirates are very, and even giant marines are still very valuable.
Oh yeah.
But Elbaf isolated, but not of their own volition like Wano, just more government doesn't want to fuck with them for now.
For now.
And we briefly talked about it, but there is another bit of Sanji being done dirty by Toei. Sanji had heart eyes while talking to Bonnie, and in the manga, Oda specifically did not have him with Hard Eyes. And you may be wondering, oh, why Hard Eyes? Why is that such a big deal? Well,
How old is Bonnie?
Bonnie, dear listener slash viewer, is 12. And Oda knew that, and that's why he made sure he did not have Sanji oogle over her like he normally does with any other women. But Toei does not care, and
Trying to do our boy dirty.
it really is. And we also see a flashback of Robin saving Stella Vegapunk, the OG Vegapunk, Applehead Vegapunk from York. That was not in the manga, but it was a nice addition. I've seen some people complain online, well, that's not canon because it's not in the manga. It's like sometimes Oda uses the anime to fill in some gaps because, like in the manga, it was not actually stated how they saved Vegapunk. Because in the manga, it cuts to York holding Vegapunk, OG Vegapunk, hot at gunpoint, and then the next we see she's crying like a bitch and he's with a backpack on.
Well, it's also, what's the harm of Robin being the one to save? Like, I mean, but it's a pretty reasonable conclusion that Robin could just kind of grab the barrel.
And I'm actually going to say this. There is the perfect example. It is in Logetown. The Daddy the Bounty Hunter. He's the guy who Usopp had a snipe off with. He was actually going to be in the manga. However, the parts that he was in, it was pushing chapter 100 in the manga. And Oda did not want, Oda wanted this big thing for chapter 100. So because of how he wanted to structure it, Daddy was actually cut from the manga. However, he was actually truly going to be in the manga. So that's actually a rare case of where the anime is more canon than the manga, which rarely happens. But
This is a small gap to fill. This isn't some crazy lore break.
Just because it's not in the manga does not actually mean it's not canon in the world of One Piece. I mean, technically, the Ace Light novels are canon. I haven't read them, but I know of them. And there are other things. So
there's also just more important things to focus on with what's going on, keeping it a buck.
We also see, though, that Kaku initially saved Robin's group from the Seraphim of S-Bear and S-Hawk. He got cut up bad. And then it was revealed that Zoro stopped them before, Lilith probably came in, or Nami came in with a bubble gun to trap the Seraphim. And we do cut to a scene where Usopp talks to the imprisoned Cypher Pole agents. Hey, enjoy that food we gave you guys. And it's funny seeing Cypher Pole, of all people, thank the Straw Hats. It's one thing for Marines because...
the Marines are a little less committed to the bit.
Yeah, Marines have encountered all walks. But Cypher Pole are a different breed. Them thanking the Straw Hats is a little very interesting to see. But we see S-Bear, S-Shark, S-Snake, and S-Hawk all bubble-fied.
We also have a moment of Luffy straight up thanking S-Snake, like, thank you for freeing my friends.
And we just see S-Snake act exactly like Boa.
We would have a moment where it is the reverse of Sanji and Bonnie. However, we know for certain in our heart...
It makes sense.
Well, Luffy, don't be having feelings. Not those type of feelings.
But it is also revealed that there are traits of the people that the Seraphim are created from in the Seraphim. Like Boa's feelings for Luffy. And I'd be very intrigued to see what other little traits there are of the other warlords that are now Seraphim. We also get... But I think now's a good time, though, because during this scene, Frankie thanks S-Snake for unpetrifying him. However, Frankie's new voice actor debuted these past 2 episodes. We were sitting here watching and had no idea who was talking to the Seraphim. It did not register. I'm not saying it is bad. Because
We've had how many episodes with the OG voice actor?
600.
600.
And I'm saying that because Whole Cake was like, what, 200 episodes, and he wasn't there. But yeah, good solid 600 plus or so episodes.
The dude's not doing a bad job. It's just when I think of Frankie, that goblin voice sticks in my head, clear
Yeah.
as day. Frankie.
We haven't heard a super yet, though.
True,
And
we'll have to hear that.
until we hear a super from the new voice actor, the jury is out in my book. However,
He sounds markedly younger, which Frankie is 30.
yeah, Frankie's not that old. I want to say he's early mid 30s, which again is not horribly young. I mean, one of the big things I will say, like, and I will say this: you can't help voice actors can't help how they sound with when they grow older and stuff. Yeah, he's 36 currently.
The last guy was in his 70s.
Yes.
Which-
So it does happen when people grow old. It's just one of the facts of life. And also, people's voices are unique. In particular, say, for at least in us Americans, the Japanese voices that they utilize are very unique.
He's been voice acting Frankie now for how many years?
Oh, God. Water 7 was 2005?
Oh my god.
Like 20 years of Frankie?
20 years of just Frankie.
And that's a long time in the world of voice acting in general. And people don't.
Well, he wants to. He's gonna retire
And
eventually.
he had to retire. And then. But so. I think he's doing all right once we get used to it.
Give him time to grow on us.
And also, I mean, I think it does suit more a 36-year-old. Because another issue, I was actually going to mention this earlier, Dragon's voice in the sub, it sounds older than Garp's. And because of how old the voice actor is, or at least the voice actor who had been voicing Dragon, they might have a new one now, I'm not sure. But it to me is like, I don't mind like Sabo's new voice actor, I can't really tell the difference between the two. There is a difference, but it's not night and day. This one's very night and day right now, but again, until we hear that super, I'm cool with it. But if that super is underwhelming, ooh, that's it's gonna be hard.
Yeah.
And so they formulate their plan. And meanwhile, and I'm going to say this, I saw a comment on this, and I completely agree with it. Why the hell are they letting Rob Lucci, whose whole career is espionage, information gathering, and everything, literally roam free? I don't care that he helped keep the Seraphim in check. You lock his ass up, you throw a hood on his head, and you throw him... and you make sure he can't hear shit. He is the worst.
Give him the caribou treatment. That man needs to be stuffed in a barrel.
Yes. And for some reason, they aren't. And so Lucci, I'm going to guess...
Lucci's at least, like, he's messed up. He needs to lay down because he's pretty cut up.
No, Kaku's the one messed
Kaku,
up.
my bad.
Yeah, Kaku's out of commission. And Kaku's also...
He's not as strong.
Even back in Water 7, though, he was always more chill. I mean, we know he actually did enjoy his time as a shipwright undercover. Like
He doesn't have the same malicious spirit that Rob does.
Yeah, Lucci is, I think, the pure definition of a sociopath. But for some reason, they let him move about. And also, I don't know how Stussy didn't know, like... He's somehow able to convey information to the Marines, and it's reported to Kizaru like, "Hey, here's the satellites that are still in play. Here's where people are. Here's the current, basically health bars of people." And Kizaru takes this to Saturn, and it's like, okay. And Saturn lays out the thing. Here's what we need. We need York. We need the Vegapunk records. And we need the laboratory that makes the Mother Flame. These are our three bare minimal things that we need. If everything else goes to shit, you make sure those three objectives are taken care of. The side objectives of rescuing the Cypherpol agents, not destroying all the scientific advancement Vegapunk has.
And the last one, civilians.
Well, the civilians already escaped, and Saturn does actually order the Marines to sink their ships. Again, because this is, in their mind, the Ohara, who knows what. Even though, let's face it, it was just the Vegapunks studying the Void Century. They weren't going to have their civilian contractors involved in that. But world government's not going to take chances. But then, again, going back to the problem of Centaur's defense, the defenses, the pacifistas, and the sea beasts. And Saturn is asking Kizaru, you can go through the Labosphere defense because that's a laser and you're a light. It's like, I can. However, Centaur, I wouldn't want to do that and just skip over Centaur. It'd be unsportsmanlike.
He owes him that much. Plus the sea beasts.
And Saturn, but Saturn doesn't buy that sportsmanship, gamesmanship argument. But he does, but then when Kizaru is like, also, Centaur is in charge of the sea beasts and coastal defenses, so if I leave him unchecked, he would know I do that. Because I am light. I'm not exactly stealth. I'm speed.
All of their technology.
I'm not stealth.
The pacifistas are based on my powers.
He would see me, and he would probably sense me with his observation hockey. I can't not take care of him because then the defenses are fully unleashed, and that's a problem. And Saturn's like, okay, that's fair. It's like, damn, this is a headache, but fair enough. And we do see, and so the end of 1124, we have Bonnie, Lilith, Frankie, and Luffy going towards the Mary / Vegapunk mech, giant ass robot. And Kizaru appears and clashes with Centaur, causing a big explosion.
Which also, Centaur reacted to that. He doesn't have a whole lot of feats going on, but that's pretty wild.
Centaur has always been billed as a defender, and he was prepared, unlike when Lucci caught his ass lacking.
Yeah.
Here, Centaur was ready and was locked in. I mean, I've always had Centaur as like a Yonko Commander level character.
Assumedly.
I think, if I recall correctly, he has a special cross guild bounty like Kobe. I think he's exactly like Kobe. He has a special 500 million berry bounty, which again the cross guild does note when you're a more exceptional figure in the Marines system, and Centaur is that because I think he's now the head. Centaur is the head of the science branch of the Marines.
Yeah, with Vegapunk gone.
Well, no, with working under Vegapunk, but Centaur is the go-between for the Marines and Vegapunk.
Yeah. And
so he's the head of the science team, basically. And Centaur, and also for all the people who don't think that admirals are strong and like to use the manga to think about other characters, Luffy says after only Kizaru appears, someone is here, someone strong. I mean, Kizaru wiped the floor with the supernova on Saba Odi, kept Whitebeard a bit in check at Marineford, and is the OG Admiral still around? His Vegapunk based the Pacifista lasers on his Devil Fruit. He is a very strong person. Doesn't have conquerors, but armament. No, he does not have the willpower or desire. He literally calls himself a puppet of the Navy to Centaur.
But I just don't. In case we get some wild turnaround later.
Yeah, all the top tiers have conquerors. That would be such a cop out by Oda. Yeah. I will admit that. I will not like that. It's okay to be strong and not have conquerors.
I just don't want to be proven wrong later on such a silly thing.
But it is shown why, though, Kizaru, despite claiming himself to be a puppet, he is human still. And we see the episode kind of ends with them clashing, but also a flashback of little Centaur and Vice Admiral Bassolarino, or even maybe a lower rank than Vice Admiral. So clearly, Centaur calling Kizaru uncle, it's not just friendly. It's, to me, they all do kind of see themselves as family, because I think Kizaru, we'll see Sentimaru's origins in a flashback, but it's basically heavily implied that Vegapunk and Kizaru raised Sentimaru.
We had a nice parallel going on with, prior to this, just not long ago, we had Aokiji and Garp and their relationship together, and that was
Master and pupil, and here it's another master pupil facing off.
uncle and son.
Uncle and nephew,
Yeah.
but this one I don't feel the mentee has as much of a chance of winning than the mentor.
No, this is a much wider gap.
Yes.
Even with a liberal interpretation of Sentomaru. We forget Kizaru is still definitely top tier.
Yeah. So, and then 11:25, we're going to see Sentimaru versus Kizaru, which is going to be, I think it's going to be a very interesting fight. It's a whole lot of defense and unstoppable force, immovable object almost type logic. It's going to be fun, but and I do think that we do see, and we see really the first start of the siege of Egghead. Like, this is now 11:25 is the real beginning of the siege. Like,
Things are popping off.
that things are beginning to pop off. Like,
Things are-
is 11:25 is to Egghead what Whitebeard cracking the air with the Quake fruit at Marineford, whatever episode. I want to say that's like 461. It was to Marineford. Like, this is the okay.
First shot.
This is the cannon shot episode is 11:25. And it's going to be a good one. We will be here to go over that one as well. In our next episode, though, we also plan on going over the latest manga chapters, those being 1143 and 1144. We'll go over those again in the next episode or so. 1143 and 1144. That will be fun to do. And again, we are back in One Piece finally.
Let's go!
And it's just great to be back. I didn't hear any new soundtracks, but I'm also not one to know all of the One Piece music library. So,
New intro, new outro. I like them.
people aren't head over heels, but I think the visuals are great in both. The music is good. They're not peanut butter jelly. They don't mix well together, but
not
it's
bad.
also set.
They're
They're all right. They're middle of the road. But also, these are painful reminders that we are getting Bonnie/Kuma's backstory.
Yeah.
In the intro, we do see briefly Figurlin Garling. It's like one of the little side bits, but so we're getting